Mr. Duncan wasn't a wealthy man, but what he lacked in money, he made up for in love and quiet strength. A widowed carpenter living in a small rural town, he raised his twin daughters, Lillian and Millie, on his own after losing his wife during childbirth. His hands were rough from years of woodworking, yet gentle when he braided their hair before school. They lived modestly, 3 hearts under one roof, bound by hope and resilience. While others in the community saw him as a man who'd fallen behind in life, Mr. Duncan never complained. He believed his daughters deserved more than he had ever known. Every night, after long hours in his shop, he would sit with them at the kitchen table, helping with math homework and dreaming about their future. In his heart, he carried one unshakable goal: to see Lillian and Millie succeed far beyond the limits of their small town. As the girls grew older, so did the financial pressure. School books got more expensive, and college felt more like a dream than a destination. Mr. Duncan worked long hours in his dusty workshop, taking on extra jobs and fixing neighbors' fences just to keep the lights on. But it still wasn't enough. When Lillian got accepted into a flight academy and Millie was offered a spot at a technical college, he was proud but terrified. The tuition fees were more than he'd ever seen in his bank account. Still, he didn't flinch. Without telling his daughters, he made the hardest decision of his life. He sold the carpentry shop, the same place where he had built furniture, memories, and a life. It was more than just a business, it was a part of him. But he handed over the keys without hesitation, using every dollar to pay for their first year. When Lillian asked why the shop was closed, he simply said, "Because your dreams matter more than my walls." And that was that. No complaint, no regret, just love in its purest form. Without the shop, life became harder than ever. Mr. Duncan took on odd jobs: roof patching, fence repairs, even night shifts at the local hardware store. The money barely stretched, but he never missed a tuition payment. Some neighbors shook their heads, saying he was foolish to give up everything for a dream that might never come true. Girls should stay close to home, they whispered. He's chasing wind. But he never let their words in. What hurt more than gossip was the silence. He no longer had the steady rhythm of the shop to fill his days. The place where he once shaped wood now stood boarded up, quiet and cold. He missed the smell of sawdust, the scrape of a chisel, the hum of creation. At night, he sat in his empty kitchen, the table still cluttered with old textbooks and pencils from years past. He'd reread Millie's notes from engineering class or listened to Lillian's voice messages from flight school. It wasn't easy, it was lonely. But to him, that loneliness was worth it because on the other side of sacrifice, he saw purpose. Then, little by little, the fruit of his sacrifice began to show. Millie started sending home photos of her engineering projectony engines she built with her own hands, schematics with notes scribbled in the margins. Lillian, meanwhile, was logging flight hours, sending videos from the cockpit with the biggest grin he'd ever seen. "Took off on my own today, Dad," she said in one message. "You were right, I can fly." Mr. Duncan played that clip more times than he could count. He didn't care if his clothes were worn or if dinner came from a can. He was rich in something the world couldn't measure: pride. He kept every letter, every certificate they mailed home, folded and pressed like gold between pages of an old Bible. And when neighbors started whispering again, this time it wasn't doubt, it was awe. "Did you hear? One of Duncan's girls is building jet engines, the other's flying them." He didn't say much in response, just smiled, nodded, and kept his head down. But in his heart, he stood taller than he ever had. The day they came home, he didn't expect anything special. He was out back, mending a neighbor's broken gate, when a sleek black SUV pulled into the driveway. Lillian stepped out, first confident, composed, wearing her flight jacket. Millie followed, her hands still stained with grease from her latest engine project. They didn't say much at first, just hugged him, long and tight. Then Millie held out a small envelope. "We want you to see something," she said. Inside was a deed. His name was on it. A 3-bedroom house just 10 miles out of town, fully paid. "It's yours, Dad," Lillian added. "No more rentals. No more patchwork roofs. You gave up your workshop for us, now we're giving you a home." Mr. Duncan stood speechless, not because of the gift, but because they remembered. They remembered everything: the cold nights, the skipped meals, the bedtime stories told on sawdust-covered floors. He didn't cry, not then. But when he stepped into that house later that evening and saw the handmade oak workbench waiting for him in the garage, he finally let the tears fall. Life in the new house was simple, but for Mr. Duncan, it felt like paradise. Morning coffee on the porch, laughter in the kitchen, and the steady hum of Millie tinkering with parts in the garage. Lillian often flew in and out of town, but always made time to sit with him on Sunday afternoons, telling stories from the clouds. "You know, Dad," she'd say, "every time I take off, I think of how you lifted us up first." He didn't say much in return, just gave a quiet nod and a look that said more than words ever could. In the evenings, they'd cook dinner together. Lillian grilled, Millie chopped, and Mr. Duncan set the table with unmatched plates they'd had since childhood. It wasn't polished or fancy, it was real. And in those moments, the house felt like a heartbeat, steady and full. Sometimes, neighbors would stop by, asking for help with a broken chair or a squeaky door. Mr. Duncan always said yes. Not because he needed the money, but because it reminded him that some things like purpose, pride, and community can't be bought. They're built, one day at a time. On the day Millie received her promotion and Lillian hit her 1,000th flight hour, they threw a small celebration, just the 3 of them. Nothing fancy, just a homemade cake and laughter that echoed through the walls of their quiet home. After dinner, Mr. Duncan sat out on the porch, watching the sky shift from gold to deep blue. The girls joined him, each with a cup of tea in hand. "You know," Millie said softly, "people always ask how we made it. They think it was scholarships or talent. But really, it was you." Lillian nodded. "We never flew alone. You were our lift." Mr. Duncan smiled, a deep, weathered smile that only time and love can carve. He didn't need awards or headlines. His reward was sitting beside him, 2 strong women who had turned his sacrifices into something greater. As the stars blinked to life above them, he whispered, "I didn't do anything special." Millie leaned her head on his shoulder. "You gave everything, Dad, and that was more than enough." In that moment, beneath the open sky, they sat in silence, 3 hearts, 1 legacy, and a love that would never grow old.